Casey with Nectar Flow Yoga, offering the fundamentals of flow for you here. This practice is really going to be more workshop-y in the sense that we will be breaking down the basics of each of the postures with a focus on safety and alignment. So whether you're just getting started with your yoga practice because you're hearing all this information about how great yoga is for you, or you're wanting to revisit some of the basics because you are practicing from home without a teacher to look at your body and your alignment, this will be a great way to spend your time to enhance your understanding of what's happening in the body for your practice. That being said, it is really important to focus on alignment, particularly in the flow style. Flow yoga is great because it does get our heart rate up, it's a little more strength building, but there is a little bit more margin for error as well, meaning that there's a greater chance to get injury in the shoulders, the hips, the knees, because we're moving more dynamically. So taking this time to dedicate to focus on that alignment and the safety of the postures is really valuable in the long-term run of your practice. So take your time, pause the video, rewind throughout. Again, consider this more of a workshop than a workout. And I do encourage you to practice in front of a mirror if you have access to that. Or after you do this class, if you could video yourself and take a look at what's happening in your body so that you can kind of see the lines of energy that we discuss. It's a great way to go about it. So to get started, we're going to come to child's pose. It's one of my favorite ways to start class. So toes touch here, knees go wide. If you need more support, you can actually place a rolled blanket behind the knees or sit your hips back on blocks. Another alternative, if the knees don't bend deeply, is to just come to a puppy pose with the hips high. A lot of benefits in that posture for the arms and the shoulders. So otherwise, we'll come to this child's pose. Fingertips extend long, center of your forehead down. A reminder here today that our yoga practice is different from other forms of movement because of the focus on breath, and particularly in the style of flow yoga that I teach, because you move with breath, oftentimes one movement to one inhale or exhale. So in that line of thinking, we want to measure our breath, have our breath be nice and even, long and smooth. And it's not just that the breath paces us, but that the breath enhances the physical experience of each posture. Often we find we're expanding or expressing outward on our inhales, and on our exhales drawing in. So with that, on your next inhale, root your hands down, fire up your arms, and rise up to a tabletop position. Again, starting with these fundamentals or foundations, we'll spread the hands nice and wide till you can feel the webbing between your fingers. And then we want to stack our bones here as well, shoulders over elbows over wrists, as well as hips over knees. So not leaning forward or back, but having that stacking of the hips over the knees and the knees directly under the center of your hip points. Draw your belly to your spine, find length as if you're a turtle trying to come out of its shell from the neck. And then from here, we'll lift our tailbone, lift our chin, and spread our collarbones. On an inhale, find cow pose. On our exhale, cat pose, round the spine. So we're expressing two main experiences in the spine that I will refer back to throughout the practice. So you'll notice I'll possibly say cow the spine or back bend here, or cat the spine, round. With your breath, again noticing we're expanding on the inhale through the front body, compressing through the front body on the exhale. Take one more round like that. Inhale. Exhale, belly to spine, round your back. And then inhale to find neutral. Now, check back in with your hands and your wrists. If you're feeling added pressure in the wrist creases, I encourage you to rock some weight into the knuckles and fingertips instead of just collapsing that weight into the wrists. And you can even see that happening in my body. Here, I'm just collapsing the weight. My fingers can lift off the mat. But when I begin to rock some weight and press down into the knuckles, into the finger pads, I relieve that pressure on the wrists and I recruit the muscles of my forearms and my upper arms to help support my body. Same goes here if we just collapse our weight down into our lower body. Instead, I encourage you to press the tops of your feet in. You'll feel your core fire up. You'll feel your legs fire up. The body feels a little bit lighter. So keeping that concept in mind as we move throughout our practice, this rooting down into whatever is touching the ground to help support us. We'll make our way to our first down dog. I want you to tuck your toes here, take a breath in, and then on an exhale, shift your hips back. And notice, I've taken some of that crease out of my wrists. My arms are nice and straight and long, and I'm pushing as if I'm trying to push my mat away from me. From here, I am simply going to bring my knees off of the mat with all that pressure of my hands into the mat, and then release my heels as I straighten my legs. Now, I do not need to work my legs fully straight. That requires a lot of hamstring flexibility. Instead, the knees can stay bent. The energy of the heels is down toward the earth, but they don't need to root down. If they can, great. If you can straighten the legs without any pulling at the attachments here at the back of the legs, fantastic. Means you're already nice and open in the back body. Otherwise, we keep the knees bent. We keep that pressure of our hands into the mat. My arms are super straight. I do not have a break in the line of energy here at the shoulder. So I'm not piking at the shoulder, and I'm shifting my hips back. Now from here, I want you to simply take some nods of yes, lifting your head and drawing your chin to your chest like you're saying yes, kind of aggressively. And then no to release into the neck, just looking back and forth. And see if you can get a little more release the back of your head, back of your neck, I should say. So the crown of your head is working toward the ground. And this may mean that your gaze can go all the way in between your knees or between your heels. Versus, of course, looking forward, right? And this is what I tend to see a lot with people just getting started in their practice. Even if there's a lot of body awareness, the tendency is to want to look forward. Instead, we want to look back and really find the release of our head between our arms. Now, we're holding this down dog for a while. We'll come out of it and revisit some of these fundamentals in a moment. Just one more thing about the placement of your head, and the reason why is that the weight of our head provides some traction, particularly along the upper back here. So when I let my head go, I'm able to get some length here in the vertebrae. Versus looking forward, I'm getting activation and a little more compression. So keep that in mind and really work to let your head release here, hang in down dog. From here, I want you to look now forward between your hands and come up on your toes, and then walk your feet slowly to your hands. You'll feel the weight shift into your hands, and that is a good thing. That's part of how we want to shift and play throughout our practice. Let your head and neck go once more here, and the knees can be bent deeply in this forward fold. So you may feel like you're not flexible enough to get any further than this, and that's fine, but I do want you to release your head versus looking forward. So again, look between the knees, let the arms dangle, and eventually working to where your belly can rest on your thighs. And then root your heels down. Let your head fully release. Super important here. So we're hanging out in this what's called ragdoll shape. Maybe you grab your elbows here and create a little more traction, a little more weight of the arms and the shoulders to get some more length in the spine. Notice back into your breath. Notice if you're holding breath due to the intensity of this posture.
See if you can bring that smooth and even inhale and exhale back to your practice. From here, release your hands if you've bound them, place them on your shins, and then lift up, straighten your arms, and have a little bit of cow pose or back bend here. I want you to draw your shoulders toward your hips. Your belly is up and your spine is parallel to the earth. What we're not doing is catting the spine. I don't want you to be tucking the tailbone and drawing the chin in. So really exaggerate this back bend lift. And then fold again. On your next inhale, you'll rock some weight back into your heels, sit your hips low, and rise up to stand. Reach your fingertips long, and then draw your hands together at your heart in prayer. So coming into this Samastitihi, or prayer shape, you can close your eyes. You may want to step your feet hips width and really feel into, with the eyes closed, the foundation of your feet into the earth. Notice how you're holding the space around your hips. Pay attention here, and this is where a mirror may come into play. So as we root down into the feet, notice if your weight is more in the heels or forward into the big toe mounds. Can you even it out as you spread your toes wide? Now I can still lift my toes, but they are activated down into the ground. I'm going to draw my belly up and in as I gently pull up on the kneecaps. And then notice, again, the space around the hips. Are you clenching the glutes to push the pelvis forward? Or are you extending the pelvis, the tailbone, I should say, back, tilting the pelvis forward and collapsing through the belly? So pay attention and see if you can find an even balance between the two. Subtle engagement in the glutes, subtle engagement in the core, pelvis in a nice neutral placement. Now from here, inhale to draw your shoulders up to your ears. Feel the discomfort that actually is. And then exhale, release that. Let the shoulders rest heavy and feel the length of the neck as you draw your shoulders away from your ears. So here in Tadasana, or standing mountain pose, foundation, fundamental here to informing all of the postures in yoga. So we want to find an essence of this alignment throughout our practice. We'll inhale, reach the arms high and wide, extend through the pinky fingers, draw your shoulders down your back, and then on your exhale, bring your hands through your heart, bend your knees, and fold over with a nice flat back. So see how deeply my knees are bent? I'm folding forward, letting my head and neck go. Inhale, halfway lift, that's the cow pose in your spine. And then exhale, plant your hands. We'll take our first sun salutation A. This will be modified. I want you to take your feet back into a high plank shape. So we're holding our high plank, pressing the ground away. Now, always option to drop the knees. So here, holding either knees dropped or a high plank where I'm not sagging my hips, nor am I piking them high. I've got my shoulders stacked over my wrists, my thighs are fired up, my belly's drawing in, and I'm gently rotating my palms outward as if I'm trying to open two jars to access into my lats. So spreading the space between my shoulders as opposed to collapsing my chest down, I'm actually pushing that up toward the ceiling. Now again, this all applies as well if the knees are down. So here we are holding this high plank. Take one more breath in, and then we'll press straight back to downward facing dog. Again, my head is fully releasing, maybe even gaze between my knees. My heels are working toward the earth. They may not reach, and my knees can stay bent. I'm going to work to tilt my sits bones up toward the ceiling. So I'm lengthening the backs of my legs as I also find that traction along the back of my body. My arms are directly up overhead. It's the same shape as if I were reaching toward the ceiling. I don't have a break in the shoulder line. So pay attention to that, and again, check in the mirror and make sure there's no break in that line of energy. Take a breath in to look forward, come up on your toes, and walk your feet up to your hands. Inhale to lift up halfway. Lengthen your spine. Draw your shoulders down your back. Exhale to fold. Bend your knees. Inhale, root down. Rise up to stand. Reach tall with your arms high and wide. Shoulders down your back. Exhale, hands to your heart, Samastitihi. So that's our first sun salutation A option. High or modified plank, straight to down dog. I'll offer another option here next. Inhale, reach up and out, and then exhale, bend your knees, flat back, fold over with hands through your heart. Head and neck release. Inhale, halfway lift, lengthen your spine. Exhale, step back, high plank, hold. So here we are in high plank. I am going to show the option of dropping the knees. Same thing applies. I don't want to collapse my hips. I'm really exaggerating that. It could be subtle. Nor do I want to have the hips piked. I want to have a nice clean line from my shoulder through my hip to my knees. My belly is up and in. I'm spiraling my hands outward as I discussed previously, and I'm shooting energy out through the crown of my head, that sort of turtle coming out of its shell. Now from here, I'm going to lower down. As I do, it's really important that I don't shoot my elbows out to the side like a traditional push-up. Instead, I'm going to brush my side ribs with my elbows and lower down my chin and my chest at the same time. So from the side, it looks like this. I'm not dropping my hips first. I'm dropping my chin and my chest first. Now I have to watch out for my mic here. So I'm down on the ground now. I am going to slide my hands back slightly, wrap my elbows in or squeeze them in, press the tops of my feet down, and we're coming into our first baby back bend here, excluding cow pose. So you'll feel a similar experience, but here we have the hips rooted down into the earth. Tops of the feet down into the earth. My thighs are active. I'm going to inhale, lift my head slightly off the mat, and boom, I can feel my back body fire up. I am not lifting my head with my neck. I'm not looking forward. My gaze is going to stay down, and I'm going to lift with the strength in my back. I can actually lift my hands off the mat. Now from here, begin to press into the hands, then begin to look forward. So again, it's a lift from the strength in your back first. Inhale, come up, then press into the hands slightly, then look forward. The back of my neck remains long. I am not crunching into the back of my neck. Once more, let's try it again. Press the tops of your feet down. Lift up from the space between your shoulders. Your neck stays long. Press into your hands, then look forward. Exhale, lower down. Now some options to come back up. If you're still working to build strength, you can bring your forearms to the mat and come into a brief, what's called Sphinx pose, and then lift your hips and press yourself back to Child's Pose. That is option one. It's the easiest way to get to down dog from that prone position lying on your belly. Option two, we will reverse the way we lowered down. I slide my hands back. I'm going to press my knees down, press my chest down, and lift my hips. Now push into your hands and press yourself up to modified plank. Then back to downward facing dog. That's your second option, and one that will help you build strength. What I want you to avoid, and what I see the most of in my classes, even with advanced students that have been practicing for years, is the reverse worm, like a bad 80 stance. So really avoid that. It's not going to hurt you the first 10, 20, even 100 times you do it. But over time, the compression in your low back that this creates can potentially cause injury. Additionally, it doesn't benefit you. It doesn't create any strength in the upper body, and it helps you or encourages you to compensate and collapse in the core. So again, for review, if you're on your belly, options are forearms down, press back and walk the hands back to this child's pose, to down dog, and then maybe work over time to build the strength to press yourself up, lifting your hips first, wrapping the arms in, pushing yourself up. It's a reverse push-up, and it does take a lot of upper body strength. From here, we'll tuck the toes and take it to downward facing dog. Take a big breath in. Big exhale. Again, checking in with your down dog, making sure you've got a nice clean line of energy from your wrist through your shoulders to your hips, and from your hips through your knees to your heels, with that ability to bend your knees and lift the heels if needed. From here, take your breath in to look forward and walk your feet up to your hands, lifting your hips and shifting some weight into your hands as you walk forward. Exhale to forward fold. Inhale, rise all the way up, reach up. Exhale, hands to your heart, chin to your chest. Find some length in the back of your neck. And then inhale, reach. Exhale, hands through your heart, flat back, forward fold. Inhale, lift up halfway, length in your spine. Exhale, hands plant. We step it back, high plank. Demonstrating now the full chaturanga. So I want you to be sure that you have mastered the modified variation before taking this full variation, which means we're not collapsing the hips, peeling up, and pushing up with that reverse worm. I can't drive that point home enough. You're not going to get any benefit by trying that full variation without the integrity of the posture. So, from our high plank, I'm pressing the ground away. I'm super strong and active, not collapsing in the shoulder girdle, not sinking my hips, but nice and strong. I am going to slowly rock a little tiny bit of weight forward. I feel my core catch me, and then I'm going to bend my elbows straight back as I look forward. I lower down just about halfway, not too low. I'm right here. Then the tops of my feet go flat. I push the ground away, look forward, look up, up dog. This is a huge back bend. And then push back, roll over my toes, and come to downward facing dog. So, pretty complex series of movements, lots happening there. And I do teach a short segment specifically about how to do chaturanga. So check that out where I break that down in even greater detail. But to review, and you can roll through this with me, we'll come back to our high plank, super straight and strong. I'm going to slowly bend my elbows to about 90 degrees as I look forward, roll over the tops of my toes, press the ground away, back over the toes, heels toward the earth, downward facing dog. Now, again, I really encourage you to video yourself doing this. We have this element of ego, all of us, myself included, particularly when I was first starting my practice, where it's like, I gotta do the full variation. I'm not gonna modify. Because we believe in ourselves, which is awesome, and we think we can, but we're not gonna get the benefit if we're doing it wrong. So take the modification, build the strength, get to the place where you can do it properly. So what it will look like if you video yourself, if you're starting to get tired or you're still figuring out the motions, it begins to look like this. Sloppy, right? And that's okay the first few times you do it, but over time, you can create some injury if you're rushing through. So we'll take a big breath in, big exhale. Inhale, come up on your toes, lifting your heels, look forward. This time, option to take those baby steps or really reach your foot forward and step lightly all the way to the top of the mat. Inhale to lift up halfway, lengthen your spine. Exhale to fold. Head and neck release. Now, in our forward fold, we're getting a little warmer. We can bind the backs of our hands to our ankles. I should say our hands to the backs of our ankles to find a little bit of a deeper fold. Try to release the upper body. And then root down, rise up to stand. Inhale. So next, foundational or fundamental pose in our sun salutation B sequence is going to be chair pose. So our first chair pose, I want you to stay with your feet about hips width. Now, for most of us, hips width is a little more narrow than we realize. It's really just about having the heels directly under the center of the hip point, not hips width like what we maybe think our hips are. So here I've got this nice alignment so that my knees can track right over the line of my second toe. Now, the other thing in chair pose is there's all sorts of ways to tackle this posture. And this is where you have some options to pay attention to what feels good in your body, in your knees, your hips, your low back. So traditionally, you'll see chair pose as this super deep chair with the arms straight up overhead, the thighs parallel to the earth, the feet together, the knees squeezing in. There's nothing wrong with this pose, but it does require a lot of length in the Achilles. It requires a lot of opening in the shoulders and the upper back, and it also requires quite a bit of strength in the low back and the core so that we're not collapsing. So instead, I invite you again to take this hips width stance. Totally great, totally fine, particularly for knees and hips that have potentially some injury or some pain there. I encourage you to sit a little higher, more like a bar stool. And then also options with the arms. So maybe cactusing or goalposting the arms, maybe even hands at the hips or in prayer. Or finally, the arms can be high and wide and straight. So those are all options here in our chair pose. I'm still getting the benefit of quadricep strengthening. I am not pushing my tailbone back and collapsing my chest, nor am I leaning way back with my torso. Instead, I'm finding a nice neutral position with my pelvis, knees tracking again over the toes, super important so that we don't have this happening or this pigeon toe business happening. Those are different variations of the pose as well that I won't get into, but we really want to keep alignment as we're learning. So again, sitting down, and then over time, you may find that you can sit a little lower. You have even weight between the big toe mound and the heels, but you can lift your toes. You're not death gripping your toes into the mat. Thighs are super strong, glutes are engaged, belly is up and in. Take one more inhale here. Hopefully you've been holding this the whole time. Exhale, fold. Inhale, come up halfway, draw your shoulders down your back. Exhale, plant your hands, take it back to your high plank. Choose your variation. Press the ground away in your high plank. Exhale will lower you down or hold your high plank. Inhale, your cobra or up dog. Exhale, press back, downward facing dog. All right, now for our sun salutation B, I'm going to break this down pretty pretty structured. So we're going to start today with a lift of this leg. Now pay attention when you lift your leg. The tendency may to be really to open that hip and spiral the hip out to the right side. So right leg lifts. I want to keep my right hip squared down. This helps me engage my core and find length on the left leg. Now, I want you to shift forward to your high plank and then press back. Try that again. Shift forward, right leg stays lifted, and then press back. This is a pretty strong move. If that's too much, you don't have to do it. But if you can do that, then start that shift forward, but bend your knee and bring it forward with you. Now I've got my knee lifted, I'm shifted into high plank. From here I'm going to flex my right foot and step it between my hands. So this frequently in beginners instead looks like when the teacher says, step through, that foot gets stuck. Now, why did the foot get stuck? First of all, I haven't shifted forward enough to create space. Second of all, I tried straightening my leg too early. So instead, I am going to find this complex series of movements, shifting forward, bending my knee, lifting as I press the ground away. Then it's if I'm going to kick a soccer ball between my hands, boom, I step that foot down. Drop your left knee, and we'll come into Anjaneyasana or low lunge. Press the ground away with your front right foot, stack your shoulders over your hips, and press the top of your left shin down. Inhale, reach and extend through your fingertips. Arms are straight and active. I'm really spreading my fingers or squeezing them together. Both have benefits, but I want to reach long, not have arms that are loose and hanging in the air. Take one more inhale here, and then on your exhale, plant your hands, tuck your back left toes, or keep the left knee down, and step the right leg back to meet the left. We'll lower through our variation of choice and meet in downward facing dog. Inhale, left leg goes high, and we'll practice again. Shift forward, high plank, lift the left leg. Inhale, take it back. Exhale, shift forward. Now, this may be a modification, right? We drop the bottom knee and lift, and then tuck and lift. Now, if that felt good and you feel ready, shift forward and draw your knee through. Try again, inhale, lift. Exhale, shift forward, and then kick the soccer ball. And you'll notice on my left side, I have to lift my left hand. I'm weaker and injured on my left side. So just know different sides in the body will have different experiences. We'll go ahead and drop that right knee down. Inhale, come up for your Anjane Asana. Just a low lunge here. And again, attention to everything, the inner workings in the body. As I press down my left foot and my right shin, I feel my hips get activated and strong, draw my belly in, and then I'm reaching not from my shoulders, but from my lats and through my fingertips. Take one more inhale. Exhale. Plant your hands. Tuck your back right toes or keep the right knee down, and we'll meet in high or modified plank with a lowering, a lifting, and a pressing back on an exhale. Take a breath in. Big breath out. Look forward, and I'll speak to another thing you'll hear traditionally in my practices as well as other teachers' classes that teach flow is to step or jump to the top of the mat. Now, jumping to the top of the mat is really fun. It gets our cardio up, and it's beneficial for building an arm balance practice over time. But if we are clonking the feet to the front of the mat, we're not getting a whole lot out of it. So if you want to play with jumping, I actually encourage you to really play with stepping lightly first. When you can start to get that light step, it means that you're transitioning more weight into your hands. And I'll demonstrate the jump as we go as well. So find a forward fold here. And then we'll bring our feet together if you'd like for this next chair pose. So my big toes are going to be touching. My heels are slightly apart. And then I'm going to sit my hips low and inhale up to chair. I invite you to sit a little lower in this chair. Now that the knees are together, the big toes are touching, we can sit a little lower and we can play with whatever variation in the arms you want to try on. Maybe try on this cactus arm so you can access into your lats. Lats are underworked throughout our day because we work up here in the shoulders too much. If we can start to access our lats a little more, we can relieve some of the tension we carry here in the shoulders. Take one more inhale, and then on your exhale, forward fold. Head and neck release. Inhale up, halfway. Lengthen your spine, draw your shoulders down your back, and then exhale, we'll step back lightly to our high plank. Hold, press back to down dog when you're ready, or flow through your variation of choice. Meet in down dog. Inhale, take your right leg high. Exhale, we'll step the right foot through. Now, if the foot's still getting stuck, that's totally fine. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're learning. I want you to just walk your hands back and then use the hands or any adjustment you can to get the foot closer to the top of the mat. For our second round of Sun Salutation B, we are going to rise up into a crescent warrior. So if this is too much, always the option to drop the back knee. Otherwise, we're up on these back left toes. My right knee is stacked right over my right ankle. I've got a nice deep bend. My thigh is virtually parallel to the ground. The other thing I'm thinking about is what's happening in this back foot. I tend to see a lot of this, and this is easier, it's a compensation, than pushing as if I'm a sprinter about to take off out of the blocks, out of this back leg. So I've really got action or spring in my back leg. I'm sitting the hips low, I'm lifting my belly up, navel toward my spine, and then here, same options with the arms. Hands can stay on hips if there's a shoulder injury. You can have cactus arms, or you can reach the arms high and wide. We'll take one more inhale. Exhale, release your hands to the mat, your vinyasa, or press straight back to down dog. So when I say vinyasa, that basically means meet me in down dog, taking your chaturanga or your cobra or up dog. Inhale, take your left leg high. Exhale, step your foot through your hands. Back right heel stays lifted. My feet are hips width here. I didn't speak to that before, but I don't want to have my feet on a tightrope where my heel's in line with my back toes. Instead, I want to have this hips width shape because my hips are squared to the front. It's called closed hips. So again, I've got this nice deep bend in my front left leg. I have my back right heel lifting toward the ceiling, not collapsing back, and I'm pushing off my back right toes. My arm variation is what works for me and my shoulders. I'm reaching out from the side bodies, drawing my belly up and in. Exhale, plant your hands, and we'll meet in downward facing dog. Taking whatever variation you're using today, I'm going to demonstrate high plank, holding for a couple breaths, and pressing straight back. And while you rest in down dog, come back to the fundamentals of that pose. Think about where the weight is placed in your hands. Is it evenly spread all the way through the fingertips or collapsing into the wrists? And have you found a little more opening in the backs of the legs so you can work your heels toward the earth? Maybe play with lifting the inner arches of your feet to feel your inner thighs fire up. Inhale, look forward between your hands, come up on your toes, and then here, an option to play with the jump or step with the opposite foot this time. So if you're jumping, I want you to play with lifting the heels. You look past your fingertips, bend your knees, and see I've got this kind of coiling happening. Now, where we go wrong is we only think about what we're doing with the feet. But instead, I want you to think about what you're doing with the hands. Keep your arms straight and strong, your belly's up and in, and then you float your feet to the front of the mat. Land them lightly. Head and neck release. And keep in mind, give yourself grace. That motion takes time and a ton of practice. I remember when the teachers first started saying, don't make a sound when you land your feet, I thought they had to be kidding. I'm there now, but it's taken me about 12 years. So just be patient with yourself. If it's something you want to commit to it. Practice it. Take a breath in here in your chair pose. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway up. I'll play now with jumping back. Similar idea, just in reverse. I have to shift the weight into my hands, so there's a little rocking forward. I'm going to bend my knees, maybe even deeply here. And then as I jump back, I'm going to bend my arms for my chaturanga. So I'm going to bend and jump back. Do that again. Whoop, lost my mic cover here. So I'm here, I'm bending into this little ball pose. Watch me bend my elbows as I go straight back to chaturanga. From there, up dog, downward facing dog. Inhale, right leg high. Exhale, right foot steps through. Drop your back left heel down, and I like to step my left foot out a little to the left edge of the mat. We're going to come up into warrior one, but I want, before you lift your hands, again, we're workshopping here, I want you to really think about what's happening in your hips. So in our crescent warrior, and you can even lift your left heel, feel how the left hip squares down. When you drop that left heel down, it opens just the left hip. The right hip stays pointing forward. So this is a unique experience in the hips. Our hips are on an angle. I've got this nice angle in my hips, Now, hands can come to your hips. Turn your chest to face over your right thigh. That will gently drape your left hip forward. Right thigh drawing up and back. So I'm lifting from the inner right thigh, drawing back with the outer right thigh. My belly is up and in, my chest is lifted. Extend your fingertips long. Warrior One. Also known as Virabhadrasana A. Take one more inhale. Feel the inner left thigh, the outer left foot, and then exhale, hands plant. Now you'll also hear a variation offered to do a three-legged vinyasa. What that looks like is this front leg will stay lifted as I come to high plank. Then I lower down through chaturanga. Both feet go flat. Up dog. Don't do a three-legged up dog, please. And then take it back to down dog. We'll take that to the left side. Inhale, left leg lifts. Exhale, step it through. Root your right heel down, coming into Warrior One. Again, step that right foot out to the right edge of the mat a little bit. And here we'll play again with the hips. So hands are on the mat. Just turn your right heel up. Feel your right hip square down. Turn your right heel down. Root it down. Root the knife or pinky edge of the right foot down. Left foot is pressing down. And then from here, we rise up. Notice the hips are on an angle, but it's my chest that turns forward, and that gently drapes the right hip forward. Why I teach this so specifically is because a lot of times, or traditionally, and for a lot of people that are super flexible and younger than me, really cranking that right hip or back hip forward is the way it's been taught. That doesn't work in most people, particularly women that have kids, in the SI joint. Our hips change over time, and this is a friendlier approach to this posture. For years, I actually took Warrior One out of my sequencing because of how it was taught to me, and it didn't feel right in my body. It wasn't until I revisited the posture with some mindful teachers that helped me understand it can be done safely and can have benefit. So firing up this back thigh, firing up the front thigh, rooting down through the feet. One more inhale. Exhale, hands plant, up on the back right toes, optional, three-leg vinyasa. Again, up dog has both feet down. Now, I didn't speak a lot to up dog, so I'm going to hold it here now. What I see a lot of in up dog is this. And my thighs can still be lifted, but there's a collapse in the shoulders. I'm going to take a moment to break that down. Up dog is pretty complex. It's very powerful throughout the whole body. Can be a beautiful stretch for the back, but it can be too much, right? We can cramp into the back and overdo it in the shoulders. So if you're coming into your up dog, I'll come to the side. I actually want you to kind of experience that cow pose. So see what's happening here in my shoulders. I'm pushing the ground away. The difference is I'm not holding the majority of my body weight here. I've got a lot less body weight on my arms and my shoulders. We wouldn't do our cow pose like this. So why do our up dog like that? So what I want you to do is find your cow pose, take your toes back, knees back, tops of the feet down, then press into the tops of the feet and keep the integrity of that. So try it again. Find your tabletop. Inhale, cow. Walk the knees back. Keep the hips lifted to start. Press the tops of the feet down. Then drop the hips and the shoulders stay strong the whole time. Tuck your toes. Down dog. Big breath in. Big exhale. Inhale, look between your hands. Come up on your toes. And then baby steps, big steps, or again, if you're playing with the jumps, I'm going to demonstrate what you're working toward, if I can stick it today. We're working toward getting this line of energy to stay the same and just bringing the feet up to the hands. So what that looks like is a slow lower of the feet. Forward fold. Inhale, last chair pose. And in this last chair, I'm going to demonstrate the addition of a twist. So we frequently get this prayer chair twist, I'm going to do a modified version to start. So sit into your chair. This time I do have my knees, my feet, my toes together. And then I'm going to swing one arm back and the other arm forward. I've got my belly drawn in. My spine is still nice and long, and I'm finding a twist here. The tendency is to scoot the front knee, the left knee in this case, out ahead. I want to use this opportunity and this upright twist to draw my left leg back and keep my knees squeezing together. Inhale through the center. Exhale, upright twist to the left. Notice, tendency is the right knee scoots up, the left hip kicks back. Try to keep the twist in your torso. Inhale up through the middle, and I'll demonstrate how that applies to our prayer twist. So, we're going to sit back into chair, this time hands at prayer. And you'll notice if you stay up high, I'm not going to be able to get a very good twist. So in this case, you want to sit really, really low. Now I'm going to hook my left or opposite elbow outside my right knee. I'm using the pressure of my top hand to push down into my bottom left hand. So pay attention to drawing the knees together and letting the twist happen in the upper back. Again, I'm using this pressure of my top hand. You'll notice what happens in my right shoulder to help me twist a little deeper. Inhale up through the middle, and then exhale, we'll take it to the other side. Sit nice and low. Take your right elbow to your left knee. Press the top hand into the bottom hand into the top, and twist. Paying attention, noticing if that right knee wants to kick out, continuing to draw the knees in line. Inhale all the way up through the middle. Exhale, bent knees, flat back, forward fold. Inhale, halfway up, find length, belly is up and in. And then on the exhale, we'll play with that jumping back again as an option, or simply stepping back to high plank. If we're jumping, we'll bend the knees toward the chest and lower through our chaturanga to up dog. Tuck your toes, down dog. For this next sun salutation B variation, I want you to try to step your right foot forward without lifting the right leg. So when we lift the leg, it gives us the added benefit of more length so that we can step through and use a little momentum, right? Swinging that foot through. Instead, inhale, look forward. Your belly draws up, shift to your high plank, and then set your right foot down. Drop your back left heel down, driving that left heel into the mat. And then you'll notice here, when you pull the left heel in line with the right heel, you've got more of a rotation in your back left hip. Lead with your left hand and find warrior two. Now in warrior two, unlike crescent with closed hips, warrior one with hips on an angle, we actually have both hip points facing the long edge of our mat, or open hips. I want to pay attention to a nice bend in my back or my front right leg and a firing up of my inner back left thigh. Drive the pinky edge of your left foot down and allow there to be at least a slight, if not even greater angle on that back left foot. Then for the arms, pay attention to extending the arms long. We're not lax or loose in the arms, but active. Extend that energy through the fingertips. Lift up on the triceps. Notice if the arms are dropped or angled. I want you to really have the arms straight through. Like I used to throw javelin in college, and I always think about the javelin kind of going through this shoulder girdle. Really straight, really strong. And then another tendency here in our warrior two is to have the front knee rotate inward. I want you to press that front knee out and sit low. Beautiful transition here. We'll inhale, reach for the ceiling with the right hand, drop your left shoulder, feel all this length along your right side body, and then windmill the hands down for that optional three-legged or modified vinyasa. Downward facing dog. Inhale, look forward, step your left foot through, Drop your right heel down, and I'll demonstrate this warrior two from the front here. So again, my feet are now on a tightrope. I'm leading with my right hand to windmill myself open, and you'll notice my body is in this nice kind of clean line. I'm not really sticking my booty back, nor am I pushing my pelvis way forward. I'm actually taking my right hip to spiral back, taking my front left hip to spiral forward, sitting nice and low, pushing that left knee out to the left, not collapsing into the midline, and extending long. Now another little trick, and I still do this in my practice after about 20 years of practicing, is to look over the back hand. This helps me open my chest and wrap my back right shoulder back a little more. Looking at those back fingertips and making sure my back arm is strong and active, and then I simply turn the gaze back over to my left middle finger. Inhale, reverse. Exhale, windmill your hands down, planting them, taking that optional three-legged vinyasa or high plank to downward facing dog. We'll take a big breath in and a big exhale, and then drop your knees. Child's pose. Notice into your hips, your upper back, and any change in sensation as you meet this pose again. We'll swing our legs around, coming to a bridge pose. One last back bend, and one that frequently shows up in flow practices and I think merits a little extra teaching. So important here to stack our knees once our hips are lifted right over our feet, so you can adjust if you need to, but find an angle here where the heels are slightly ahead of the knees, not super far and not super close. From here, we'll put some pressure into the backs of our arms, press the back of our head down slightly, and then press into our feet as we lift with both the backs of the arms and the pressure of the feet into the mat. Gentle pressure of the back of your head into the mat, and then release. Maybe press this pinky edge of the hands down to get a little more lift. Now from here, you can wiggle your shoulders underneath your chest and maybe bind your hands at your low back if that feels good in the shoulders, the neck, and in the sacrum. I'm not squeezing my glutes excessively, but they are engaged, and my thighs are also engaged, helping to lift my hips. I'm feeling the strength in my back body here. Take one more inhale. And then on an exhale, we're going to exit this different from how we came in. So I actually want you to tuck the tailbone, feel the low back, ground down one vertebrae at a time. Soften the hips. And then bring your knees to touch your feet wide. Bring one hand to your belly and one hand to your heart. Now, all those warriors that we did and do in a traditional vinyasa practice are a lot in the hips for strengthening. And it's nice to get a hip stretch here. So we'll take a supine pigeon, bringing figure 4 shape, right ankle to the left thigh, and then I'm going to push my right knee away from me as I draw my left ankle toward me. Now we don't want to overdo this because too much stretch in hips that are tight can actually impact the knees. So any pinching, any straining in the knee joint, please back off. Otherwise, we feel some sensation in the outer right hip, the right glute, and we breathe into that. Unbind your right leg, take your left ankle to your right thigh, and start to draw the right thigh toward you, push the left thigh away. So even though we are in a workshop style session today, I do like to offer the chance to wind down. We are still getting a full yoga practice in. And we're finding some ease now to balance out the effort. Getting out of the thinking mind and into the feeling in the body. From here, release, and we'll take the legs to a butterfly or Baddha Konasana shape. Soles of the feet to touch, knees wide. Encourage you to bring blankets or pillows underneath the thighs. Soften the belly. From here, you'll roll your right leg on top of your left as you scoot your hips to the center of the mat, and we'll find a supine twist. Just knees to one side, gaze to the other. Then roll back onto your back. Scoot your hips over to the left as you drop the knees to the right and gaze left. Roll back to the middle. We'll hug our knees into our chest. If you have any bright lights on, I encourage you to turn them off or grab an eye pillow if available as we come into our final rest. Squeeze into this ball pose. Take a big breath in. Squeeze everything in. And release to your Shavasana. Legs go wide. Palms face up. Eyes close. And we come into the sweetness, the sukha of our practice. Again, finding balance to that effort, the stira and the strength. And here I encourage you to stay in your Shavasana for at least 5 minutes, longer if possible. And we'll leave you here to enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me in learning about fundamentals today. I hope you can take what you learned and apply it to some of my other videos. And please, as always, if you have any questions, send me an email or simply leave a comment. Thank you so much.